وآياته يؤمنون. You know, usually when we do debates with atheists, or when we talk to atheists, we use very mechanical reasoning sometimes, and we go into straight arguments, you know. We go into cosmological argument, teleological argument, fine-tuning argument, contingency argument, ontological argument.
Yes, I haven't refuted all those arguments 1000 times. Therefore, I predict this video will be a challenge for me. Please.
And we just hope and wait. Give them one argument after the other and hope and wait to see how they will respond to the arguments. And to be honest with you, from my experience, sometimes it can be quite positive. Not to say that these arguments are not good arguments, that these arguments are not effective arguments, or even that those arguments are not true arguments. But the point is this, is that what I've noticed is I've been paying more attention to the Quran and how the Quran, whether directly or indirectly, addresses atheism. Now, I don't think it's fair to say that the Quran specifies or addresses atheists in any part of the Quran. Why? How comes when the Quran addresses Christians, Jews, Muslims, and people directly, how comes Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does not choose atheists and talk to them? Because they claim not to believe in Him.
They claim not to believe in him. Really? Really? Is that the reason, Muhammed Hijab? So, the Quran is the only holy book that addresses directly Christians and Jews, polytheists. You know, if a group of 5 people made a religion and they name it the group of 5 in the 6th century, the Quran addresses them. Okay, everybody. But it forgot to mention atheists. Why is that? Maybe because in the time of the people who wrote the Quran, there weren't any atheists. Maybe that's the reason. I don't know. Okay, please continue. You made a very good start to entertain us. This will be very entertaining.
So it's not something which they would pay particular attention to. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is far above and beyond lowering Himself to that kind of a discourse.
So, according to Muhammed Hijab, Allah is far and beyond to lower Himself to this kind of discourse and address atheists. Okay, let's see the level of Allah. Here Allah is an accountant. Allah instructs you concerning your children. For the male, what is equal to the share of 2 females. But if there are only daughters, 2 or more, for them is 2/3 of one estate. And if there is only one, for her is half, and for one's parents, to each one of them, is a 1/6 of his estate. But if blah 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 blah. So here the God of 3 trillion galaxies is an accountant. And at the same time is beyond dealing with atheists. So, atheism is literally the worst problem of Islam. With mathematical certainty, in the next 200 with 300 years, atheism will end Islam, okay? There is no doubt about that. And God forgot to mention atheists. Let's see what other things God remembered to mention. The context of this verse is that Muhammad was bored to talk to people, but he was shy to tell them. So God made a revelation and advised Muhammad's visitors not to come early for dinner. Surah 33, verse 53. O ye who believe, enter not the dwellings of the Prophet for a meal, without waiting for the proper time, unless permission be granted you. But if you are invited, enter, but when your meal is ended, then disperse. Linger not for conversation. Lo, that will cause annoyance to the Prophet, and he will be shy of asking you to go. But Allah is not shy of the truth. The next verse will be from the Hadiths. Okay? In this verse, Muhammad advised followers how to wipe their ass. Okay? The instruction is to use an odd number of stones. So, indirectly, Allah advised how we should wipe our ass with 3 stones, okay? But he cannot lower himself to address atheism. reminds you, atheism is the direct opposite of his position. Okay? So it's the only thing he needs to address, in other words. But he doesn't address that. He remembered to address how we wipe our ass with 3 stones. Okay, Muhammad, you can continue now.
So, instead of looking at where in the Quran atheists are addressed, because I can tell you they're not addressed in the second person at all in the Quran. I looked at in the Quran where atheism may be indirectly addressed. And I thought about these ayat that I've just recited. This is in Surah Al-Jathiyah. Tilka ayatullah. These are the signs of Allah. Natluha alayka bil-haq. We narrate them to you in truth. And this is a very powerful part of the verse. Subhanallah. Wallahi, it's very powerful. فَبِأَيِّ hadith. So after what speech? After Allah. بعد Allah. وَآيَاتِهِ يُؤْمِنُونَ. After what speech? After Allah and His signs will they believe. Now this really struck me because it's reasoning to what you call epistemic reasoning. Now what do I mean by this? The question is, what standard of truth are you going to accept? Because people believe in things on a daily basis. We have beliefs. Philosophers use the word belief
boring
to reference our thoughts and its correspondence with reality. This is belief. This is what Bertrand Russell wrote in his book, The Problems with Philosophies. Everyone has some kind of belief. It can be true belief and it can be false belief.
Okay, and we recognize truth with evidence and the scientific method. When you see people trying to redefine truth, it's time to worry, okay? They don't know what they're talking about.
It does not necessarily mean that if you have belief, that you must be a religious person, for example, or someone who believes in metaphysical realities. The verses, though, are very powerful because they reference teleological realities. What does this mean? They reference the fact that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has created things and He has made them, or He has tailored them to human use. In other words, not only is the universe fine-tuned for human existence, which is an argument very much used by every theist that wants to argue their case. It's one of the most powerful arguments. Not only is that the case, though, but the things that the universe exhibits are useful to the living creatures within them.
Okay, so Muhammad is doing now this argument.
And I've since learned that when you really look at the evidence, the truth is it takes more faith to be an atheist than it does to believe in God. You've really got to ignore the facts.
It's funny how we equate the word atheism with intellectual, when it's the exact opposite.
That's right.
Hold this, Kirk. Behold the atheist's nightmare. Now, if you study a well-made banana, you'll find on the far side there are 3 ridges. On the close side, 2 ridges. If you get your hand ready to grip a banana, you'll find on the far side there are 3 grooves, on the close side 2 grooves. The banana and the hand are perfectly made one for the other. You'll find the maker of the banana, Almighty God, has made it with a non-slip surface. It has outward indicators of inward contents: green, too early; yellow, just right; black, too late. Now, if you go to the top of the banana, you'll find, as with the soda can makers, they placed a tab at the top. So God has placed a tab at the top. When you pull the tab, the contents don't squirt in your face. You'll find the wrapper, which is biodegradable, has perforations. Notice how gracefully it sits over the human hand. Notice it has a point at the top for ease of entry. It's just the right shape for the human mouth. It's chewy, easy to digest, and it's even curved toward the face to make the whole process so much easier. Seriously, Kirk, the whole of creation testifies to the genius of God's creative hand.
It absolutely does.
Yet, banana in the wild, this is how it looks. Okay, the yellow banana, humans made. Okay, also, okay, you took an example of a banana. How about a coconut? Is it easy to eat, a coconut? Anyway, not to humiliate you too much, Muhammad, I will tell you the answer really quick and save you some embarrassment. From all Earth, only 15% is habitable to humans. And that took us 200,000 years to be able to survive. In the first, let's say, 195,000 years, we were dying from our teeth at age 16 or something, okay, 20. So, your argument, in fact, the opposite is true, okay, Mohammed? Bravo for raping reality one more time. You are the moron who says, oh, look what a wonderful flower, it's made for humans, and forgets to see this.
So there is a reciprocal relationship between the biological living creatures and the cosmological inanimate celestial bodies.
Okay, the reason Earth, to an extent, seems to be tuned for humans is because humans are evolved inside Earth. It was not first humans and Earth came around humans. It was first the Earth and humans evolved inside Earth. That's why you have the delusion that everything is tuned around humans. Your scope is wrong. You are looking it the opposite way. Turn your scope 180 degrees and you will start seeing things straight.
Allah is showing us, look, alternating winds, look at this, all of these things. How can you explain this? And Allah, He says something beautiful in another verse. He says, Allahu alladhi ahsana kulla shay'in khalaqah. Or khalqah, there's two qira'ahs. He is the one who perfected everything in the creation.
Okay, those verses are enough for you to stop being a Muslim, okay? Because those verses are factually wrong. It's not a debate, we know they are factually wrong. Those verses are exactly what people of the 7th century would have thought, and we know now that they are factually wrong. The creation, in quote marks, which is not a creation, but the creation is by no stretch of the imagination perfect, okay? By no stretch of the imagination. Babies having cancer, tsunamis killing indiscriminately. Okay, without evolution, humans were dying with all kinds of things. I mean, they were dying from a simple flu, okay? They were dying like this, okay? So, what the Quran says here is not true.
And this means to say, look at it, look at the creation.
And we looked at the creation, and it's nothing like you described, nothing, okay? Let me give you an example. Let's say the universe is one house. You know what % of this house is habitable for humans? Humans do not die instantly, in a fragment of a second, in less than a proton, okay? So, if you have a house, and humans can survive in this house in a less than a proton, you say this house was made for humans. Tell me, Muhammad. So, what we see around us doesn't fit with what you are saying now. The Quran is simply saying nonsense. And we know why the Quran is saying those stuff. Because it's exactly what 7th century Arabs would have thought. Okay, it's exactly. And it's nothing to do with reality.
Number one, point number one. The fact that the creation exists and is maintained.
Muhammad, let me say it as calm as possible. We know that the universe is not maintained. We know that. Physics knows that. It's self-sufficient. So why are you keep saying that the universe is maintained? I don't know why you are saying that.
How is this explained? How can this best be explained? Now, the complexity of the universe is not just the first thing we can cite, because someone say, well, complexity depends on your definition of complex. We will say the order.
Mohammed, before you continue, do you know this guy? He recently passed away. Okay. This guy, believe me, he knew better than you what works in the universe. And he was an atheist. How you explain that? If it's so obvious, can you not guess that it's a little bit more complicated than that? Than just order? It's a little bit more complicated than that.
Exhibited in the universe. And this is what the Mufassirun say of this verse. The nidam, the order of the universe. And the fact that there is a harmonious relationship between different aspects of the universe, such that, and this is an important point, the universe continues to exist.
Okay, we know the universe will have a cold death, will not continue to exist. We are just in the phase of the universe that is cooling up. So, what you are saying now is factually incorrect. The universe will die. Before the universe dies, its energy runs out. Trillion upon trillion years, there will be no trace of humans in the universe. The Quran makes the claim that the universe is made around humans. Okay, if you see the universe, that's clearly not the case. Even if that is true, that the whole universe is made around humans, again, that's contrary to all the evidence. So we don't have any reason to believe that. So the Quran is wrong either way. Okay, even if the universe is made for humans, all the evidence suggests the opposite. So when the Quran says, just look at the universe and you see it's made for humans. No, it seemed that way to 7th century Arabs, who thought the earth was the center of the universe and knew nothing about biological evolution. Okay, but now that we have cosmology and we saw the real picture, that's not the case by no stretch of the imagination. As for the order, we know that the order of the celestial bodies is done by gravity, nothing to do with any external factor. We know that as well. So, Muhammad, you are keep saying stuff which are factually incorrect.
Underline this point. The universe continues to exist. This is the question that needs to be asked. In other words, how comes the universe continues to exist? How can we best explain the fact that the universe continues to exist?
The universe is cooling down and will cease to exist at some point in time. We just happen to be in the time between. As for why the universe allows life, first of all, it allows life barely it allows life, okay? Exactly as evolution predicts. So, some kind of cosmic natural selection and the anthropic principle can explain the fine-tuning of the universe to barely allow life. The anthropic principle means that in order for you, Muhammad, to stand there and philosophize about how we came to be, that means that you're already living in the universe that allows life. You are unaware of all the other universes that failed. Maybe there are trillions upon trillion universes that failed, and you happen to live to the universe that succeeded.
Because we know from physics and other disciplines, and this is actually almost agreed upon from all sides, that the chances of the universe existing from chance are literally zero.
Literally zero, eh? Okay, let me give you a plausible explanation how the universe might have begun. Firstly, we all agree that the philosophical nothing never existed. So something always existed. Now we investigate what was that something. Was that something intelligence and with magic made everything? Or it was some kind of quantum environment that inevitably evolved to everything else? A quantum environment is simpler than air. Also, it doesn't have any time or causality limitations. Imagine that. Recently, scientists discovered something called the Higgs field. What is the Higgs field? It gives the mass to particles. Even in the vacuum space, there is something. Imagine that. Another coincidence. We also know that there is the Heisenberg uncertainty principle. Another convenient coincidence that predicts that even in the vacuum space, particles will appear out of nothing, literally nothing. So, I say what always existed was the Higgs field, a quantum environment, which is simpler than air, okay? It's just potential. So, my question to you is, what is more plausible to imagine? A quantum environment always existed, which is simpler than air, or the most complicated being imaginable always existed, that can read minds, that can make universes, that can know what's in your heart, okay? All this complexity just exists like that, without explanation. Hello, I just exist. And I just happen to love the tribe of Muhammad. So is that more plausible? Or maybe it's the other thing I just described, which we have tons of evidence that it actually happens. You tell me, Muhammad, what is more plausible?
And obviously Martin Rees has written a book, Just Six Numbers. Many different things have been written on this, which show literally that the forces of the universe, the gravitational force, the electromagnetic force, the strong nuclear force, the weak nuclear force, had these things been adjusted, even in a minor way, the universe would not continue to exist.
Paul, I'm bored to answer those arguments again, okay? It's like I'm in a time machine, okay? Christians used to make those arguments 10 years ago. They are not strong arguments, Muhammad. I'm so bored to answer those stuff again. Please, give me a fucking break.
Because the fine-tuning argument is that the universe allows life to exist, and there is a very narrow life-permitting range. And that had any of those things that I had aforementioned been any different, then the universe simply wouldn't exist and there would be no life on the universe. So there are two things to question. Why does the universe continue to exist despite the chances of it not existing being infinitesimally small?
And the answer is a cosmic natural selection.
And how could and why does the universe allow life to exist?
And the answer is, again, a cosmic natural selection.
Now, these are the classical arguments that we use, and this is more like the fine-tuning argument. But it is connected to the Quranic discourse. It is connected to the Quranic discourse because the question is, how can you best explain this? Now, wallahi, it takes more faith to believe that the universe came from chance than it does to believe that there was some intelligence behind it.
Natural selection is not chance. I mean, okay, continue.
Let me tell you something. I've spent a lot of time reading books on this topic. And to be honest with you, the most, I would say, powerful, or I wouldn't even call it that, to be honest with you, but the most vehement opposition to this kind of argument comes from a man called David Hume. Now, he was a philosopher, Scottish philosopher, and he said, but hold on, this was his argument. And by the way, he is one of the heavyweights of the Enlightenment period. So we're not talking about Richard Dawkins and Christopher Hitchens, which literally would be little boys in the school of David Hume. Little boys. We're talking about David Hume himself. So what did he say? How did he confute this hypothesis? He said, look, yeah, I understand what you're saying, but the universe could have been created from chance. And then he realized what he was saying was a little bit far-fetched, and he said, and even if it wasn't created by chance, how can you make a logical leap and say that God is the one who intelligently designed the universe? Okay, fine. You don't need to call him God. Call him whatever you want. The entity, the thing. You still have a problem here.
Muhammad, intelligence just means recognizing patterns that work in a given environment. Intelligence is not higher than nature. It's part of nature, okay? It's a natural phenomenon. Like we say, our feet, or our eyes, or a tree, or cloud, okay? That is intelligent. It's just another phenomenon, okay? Intelligence is just a tool viruses use to survive, okay? Humans is an evolved bacteria, okay? We know that. Just because bacteria uses something called intelligence to be able to survive inside nature, that doesn't mean that nature also needs this tool. Can you not get that? It's like saying because a bacteria needs a hole in his back in order to put out the, nature also needs a hole in its back to put out its seed. Okay, it doesn't work that way. Intelligence is nothing significant, okay, for the universe. For you, it's significant because it's your survival tool.
Then he said, but then how can you explain the evil in the world We say, listen, we're not talking about morals here. We're talking about organization in physics and laws of nature. So, really and truly, and to be honest with you, even David Hume was refuted by his contemporaries on this.
Let's say I blindfold you, Muhammad, and I say to you, now you will be executed. We have 100 shooters that haven't missed in their lives that will shoot at you. Suddenly you hear the shots, and amazingly, you are still alive. And you think to yourself, it cannot be a coincidence, so it must be a miracle. Isn't that exactly the argument you are doing now? Isn't that your fine-tuning argument? Then you turn around and you see that there are 101 other prisoners standing near you that were also in line to be executed. And you are just the one who survived. You don't have the whole perspective, Muhammad. Before the Big Bang, there might have been a multiverse. In fact, there are scientific theories that predict a multiverse. Like the inflation theory, okay? It predicts a multiverse in the mathematics.
This is a thorn in the side of this argument here. It's a very simple argument. Look at the design. Subhanallah. Very simple. Look. فَرْجَعِ الْبَصَرِ هَلْ تَرَى مِنْ فُطُورٍ. Go look again. Do you see any gaps in creation? Do you see any... This is a very simple argument, but it's one which is, wallahi, is a thorn in the side of atheists.
No, Muhammad, you are just an incredibly ignorant and idiotic person, okay? You are just a fool. You are an embarrassment for the 21st century, okay? You cannot learn. Let me repeat the arguments one more time. In fact, let Richard Dawkins, because you mentioned him, let Richard Dawkins explain that one more time.
We humans are obsessed with purpose. It seems perfectly natural when we're presented with an object to say, what's it for? It starts in childhood. The psychologist Deborah Kellerman has investigated this very interestingly with children, offering them a question like, why do you think these rocks are pointy? Is it because of some geological explanation, geological cause, or is it so that animals could scratch on them when they get itchy? And below a certain age, I think it's about 6, most children answer with the teleological answer with the purpose question. Yes, they're pointy so that animals can scratch on them when they get itchy. Children then mostly grow out of that purposive way of looking at the world, but not apparently everybody. In medieval times, I've got to try to work this. Who's good with iPads? I'm trying to get... Oh, here we are. Okay. In medieval times, divines would look at living things and see purpose for human benefit in them. In the 19th century, the Reverend William Paley thought that the louse was an indispensable incentive to cleanliness. Savage beasts, according to an Elizabethan bishop, fostered human courage and provided useful training for war. Horseflies, for an 18th century writer, were created so that men should exercise their wits and industry to guard themselves against them. Lobsters were given hard shells so that before eating them we could benefit from the improving exercise of cracking their claws. Another medieval writer thought that weeds were there to benefit us. It's so good for our spirit to have to work hard pulling them up. Now, it's not difficult to see that such people would also have found purpose in the physical world, in mountains. What's the purpose of a mountain? What's the purpose of a stream? We humans love to see purpose everywhere. And it's one of the great achievements of science, I think especially Darwin, but other scientists as well, to show that the impulse that we have to see purpose in anything doesn't work. And he did it not with the easy things like mountains. I mean, essentially any fool could see that mountains don't have a purpose. He did it with living things. And living things on the face of it have purpose written all over them. We look at a bird's wing, an engineer looks at a bird's wing, an albatross wing, say, and sees that it's perfectly designed for the particular way of flying that albatrosses have. Swifts have a different way. You look at an eye, you look at a heart, you look at a kidney. Everything looks designed. The Reverend William Paley himself, who was one of the earliest, one of the most coherent, I should say, advocates of this point of view, elevated the living world as being the most important place where you can find evidence for, as he thought, a deity. Don't look at astronomy, he said, look at living things. But what Darwin did was to show that even the worst case, even the most difficult case, that's the living case, has a perfectly rational, simple explanation. You do not need to resort to the idea of a designer. That was an astonishing intellectual achievement. Something as complicated as an eye, something as complicated as a heart, even a brain. Who would have thought that by the laws of physics, unaided, unviolated, just filtered through this brilliant process of natural selection, evolution by natural selection, that the blind laws of physics could produce the illusion of design as complicated and as persuasive as we see in the living world? Well, our colleagues on the other side have probably mostly given up on the living world. That was their happy hunting ground. That was the best place for them to operate, as Paley recognized. So they've been forced back now into places like the origin of the cosmos, the origin of the universe. And they like to point to the origin of the universe and say, well, science can't explain the Big Bang, or science can't explain where the laws of physics come from. Physicists are working on that. That's what scientists do. They don't lie down and pathetically say, oh, we don't understand it, so God did it. Scientists actually work on the problem. They set to work, they roll up their sleeves, and they work on the problem. One day, physics will answer those deep questions. And even if it doesn't, even if physics doesn't answer those questions, what on earth makes you think that religion can? Thank you very much.
And they cannot deal with it. Now, this is one thing. Another thing which is interesting, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran, بعد أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم كيف تكفرون بالله وكنتم أمواتا فأحياكم.
I don't want to insult this personal moment you have, okay, because I like people to like their culture. But what's this nonsense? I mean, well, you think this stuff will explain anything, okay? Anyway, we know Allah doesn't exist. Now you can sing all day, it doesn't make any difference, my friend. The only reason you're even considering Islam is that you are brainwashed from a child in a certain environment, okay? As for atheists, it's over, okay? You lost. The debate ended 10 years ago, okay? Did you see this video with Richard Dawkins? I used to see this video 10 years ago. Those years, we still had a debate. Now, big channels like, for example, Sargon of Akkad, Atheists, Unstoppable, okay, all these channels, what was the name? Thunderfoot, okay, they are making videos about social justice warriors. They don't take you seriously, not even to answer you, okay? You don't exist, in other words. You lost already.
ثم يميتكم ثم يحييكم ثم إليه ترجعون. He says, how can you disbelieve in Allah when you were dead and He brought you to life? And wallahi, I had a conversation with Ibrahim yesterday.
So Allah supposedly is trying to convince us, and He can't. Is that what's happening? Why isn't He doing this? What's the problem here? I don't get it. He wants to be mysterious, but then He also wants to convince us. So He must be mysterious until certain point, so we can have free will, but then complains why we don't believe. I mean, how your brain does not explode with those kinds of nonsense.
And he brought this to my attention, because I'm trying to bring forward some interesting Quranic arguments. And he was saying, look at this verse. It shows, and this is true, subhanAllah, it shows, there's a premise here. You are dead, lifeless, and life was given to you.
My friend, 1,000 years after Aristotle, a book saying you were dead and we brought you to life is not significant. Okay? It's really not that significant.
Now the question is, where does life come from? Can something which is lifeless endow something else with life? Or is it necessary for something which has life to give life? This is the question. Now, we're not going to go into abiogenesis, which is something some chemists and some biologists talk about. Because abiogenesis is unproven. It's speculative, and there are so many theories. And this idea that chemistry became biology, really, in a nutshell. Chemistry somehow became biology. We don't know how it happened. We're looking at the fossil records in the RNA and the DNA, but we don't know how it happened, but just it happened.
So, we should reject this science right away, Muhammad? Should we even consider this? Or it's just mumbo-jumbo? DNA, RNA, the fossil record. We should reject that right away. And we should return to real science, the Adam and Eve story. Eh?
So it's acting in a sense like a living system trying to preserve itself. We take this same moving protocell here and we put it in another experiment, get it moving. Then I'm going to add some food to the system, and you'll see that in blue here. Right? So I add some food source to the system, the protocell moves, it encounters the food, it reconfigures itself, and actually then is able to climb to the highest concentration of food in that system and stop there. Right? So not only do we have this system that has a body, has a metabolism, it could use energy, it moves around, it can sense its local environment and actually find resources in the environment to sustain itself. Now, this doesn't have a brain. It doesn't have a neural system. This is just a sack of chemicals that is able to have this interesting and complex lifelike behavior.
Somehow. Wallahi, what the hell is this? You see, what kind of pseudoscience is this?
Just because abiogenesis is not proven yet, that doesn't mean it's pseudoscience. On the other hand, the Adam and Eve story, you believe, is the most obvious mythology ever.
What kind of pseudoscience is this? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran, مَا أَشْهَدْتُهُمْ خَلْقَ السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضِ. You know, it's like we're detectives. We're bringing all the things together and we're trying to find out what happened. Taib, you did not witness this. You did not see species moving into other species or becoming other species. You have not seen this. Yet the atheist, for the most part, will be an ardent evolutionist. Yes, I believe in evolution.
Okay, that stuff do not deserve answer, okay? It's, this guy is simply a moron, okay? Simple as that.
But you did not see this. And the theory of evolution continues to change.
Muhammad, you haven't seen your prophet flying with a flying horse. He just stole you while he was sleeping the next day, okay? You haven't seen Muhammad talking to an angel alone in a cave. You haven't seen Muhammad splitting the moon, and you believe that, okay? We, on the other hand, we have seen evolution in the fossil record, in the lab, with fruit flies, to things in our body that doesn't make sense without evolution. To DNA, we have seen evolution. We made predictions, and we went there and we saw what we predicted. We made antibiotics, and we saw that they work.
So Allah says, مَا أَشْهَدْتُهُمْ خَلْقَ السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضِ. I have not allowed them to witness the creation of the heavens and the earth. وَلَا خَلْقَ أَنفُسَهُمْ. And not the creation of themselves. Now, this is very powerful. They have not seen things that they believe in.
Yet they have, you fucking idiot. Evolution is proven. You fucking idiot.
As almost anchors. Yet, they will use empirical arguments. We have not seen God and these things to deny God.
You imply that the evidence for evolution is the same as the evidence you have in Islam. Is that your implication here? Okay. Let me call an ambulance. Just a moment, please. Yes, those are buttons of a telephone. Toot, 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 toot. Yes, hello.
So here, when discussing with atheists, sometimes, wallahi, I think it is a psychological thing. It's no longer an intellectual inquiry, because if we do istiqra' of all of the philosophies that dealt with, for example, to the teleological argument or the fine-tuning argument, you'll see that there's really weak arguments in opposition to these things. And so it's not about intellectualism. It's not. It's about psychology. It's about what of the favors of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will you deny. And so with atheists, I think the best approach, and this is after some time of debating with them and talking with them, is, as the Sheikh said in the previous lecture, just smile at them, wallahi, and maybe go and get some food with them and talk with them, be nice with them, ask them how their parents are, and you never know, they might change and become Muslim. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.
Okay, and now you can all sit back and relax and listen to me singing a karaoke song with my angelic voice. Random. I took a random song and I'm singing. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Yeah. Getting closer to pushing me off and laughing heads. I'm a loser. Sooner or later, you know I'll be dead. Getting closer. You're holding the rope and taking the fall. 'Cause I'm a loser. Yeah. I'm a loser. You're pushing me off the lively edge. Sooner or later, you know I'll be dead. You're holding the rope and making me fall.